Je wordt veel aan zoeks, jongen.
Oh boy. Where do I even begin with this one? There was so much to love and hate about Amazon's Hunters that I'm honestly struggling to decide if I truly enjoyed it as I type these words. It seems I'm not alone either, as this show has managed to divide both critics and audiences alike. Sadly, I'm not even surprised. You can't have a show about Nazis in the hyperpolarized, overly sensitive climate we live in today and not piss off a fair amount of people. Which is ridiculous when you really think about it. Are all these people shitting on Hunters because it's a poorly written, terribly acted, and clumsily edited mess of a television show? Or are they upset because this fictionalized and dramatic rendition of Nazis are insulting their personally held sensibilities and ideologies? I think I just stumbled upon the best place to start this video. I've read more than a handful of professional articles and private opinions discussing and critiquing Hunters, and the consensus that I'm getting is that this show makes a farce out of real Nazis. Actual Nazis themselves were not sufficiently shocking enough, as this Slate article puts it. This perspective isn't wrong. Obviously, most Nazis weren't supervillains whose entire existence revolved around their hate-fueled ideology. So I can see how one would come to the conclusion that this actually downplays or desensitizes the lessons from Nazi Germany. But here's the thing. This show wasn't trying to be a grounded and realistic critique of Nazi Germany. It was an over-the-top, exaggerated, stylized comic book story about a group of Jews hunting and killing Nazis. Does no one recognize that? Am I crazy, or does everyone seem to turn off their critical thinking skills the second anything the least bit morally offensive comes into question? The opening scene was an undercover Nazi lieutenant being compromised and executing his wife and kids at a family barbecue, for fuck's sakes. That opening was everything you needed to know about the type of show you were about to watch. If that didn't mentally contextualize for you what was ahead, then you're missing that point of the show to begin with. Notice how I said that point. So I have zero issues with the Nazis being portrayed the way they did. It fit the stylized and overdramatic theme of this story exactly as it was intended. And I can't believe I have to say this, but just because this show had Nazis playing human chess to the death doesn't mean real Nazis weren't just as bad, if not worse. Of course they were, but if you wanted a story that truly attempted to grapple with those themes, I'm sorry, this wasn't it. Which leads me to the aspect of the show that let me down the most. My issue is that this show confused its theme with scenes like this.
Can we really afford to bury them in the sand when our enemies could pick them up and use them against us?
Yep, that shit really happened.
They wanted the Nazis to be comic book villains, but then they also wanted to confront those moral and philosophical lessons of Nazi Germany using exaggerated infomercials. This is a clash of story versus intent that detracts from either message. On paper, it can seem like a good idea because it allows them to have their cake and eat it too. They can be extremely melodramatic with a comical Nazi hunting story, while also incorporating real-world history and morality that thematically matches the comical tone. But in action, it only serves to remind your audience that Nazis were not the supervillains you make them out to be, while superficially acknowledging the lessons of World War II without actually saying anything about them. On one hand, you want it to be an over-the-top comic book style story, and on the other, you want it to critique and judge real-world history without confronting it. And by attempting to do both, they weaken the impact of either. Sorry, but you do not get to have it both ways.
Sheer fucking hubris.
You're goddamn right, empowered female commander from Picard. You unshackle this show from those half-baked infomercials while fully embracing its comical nature, and I think it would have made for a more focused, self-aware, and entertaining story. So you had me until you deliberately lost me. Are you all out there starting to see why I'm so conflicted now? Well then, Sir Cripps, I sense you pondering ever so inquisitively. What about the actual characters, you gentlemanly crippled bastard? Surely there must be something here you loved that balanced out all of this hate. Why yes, keenly aware ableist YouTube viewer. There was something that really made me appreciate this show, despite its convoluted themes.
Bruh, look at this dude.
That aspect was its characters and character development. Well, except for one, but we'll get to that after I give the show its just praises. Right from the beginning, I, for one, was invested in Jonah and his struggle between good and evil. You had solid, organic dialogue between him and his buddies as they debated superheroes and what a hero even was, which was then followed by the emotional 1-2 punch of him being unable to stand up to an asshole bully and being frozen in fear as someone shoots and kills his grandma. With what, 10 minutes? You've established a sympathetic main character who has a clear character arc ahead of him. Can he grow to become brave and take action in the face of conflict? And will that action manifest as revenge or justice by the time he gets there? Will he be a cold and ruthless leader like Meyer? Or can he follow a more righteous path, like his grandmother would have wanted? And that's not even mentioning the fact that he got his best friend killed too, which was essentially the final push needed to send him down his superhero origin story. It is simple. It is directly out of a comic book. But that's okay, because it was done effectively and it fits the reoccurring comic book themes throughout the show. And each of our Jewish Nazi hunters ranged from just entertaining enough to full-on tragic masterpieces. The character work here cannot be praised enough as far as I'm concerned, especially when it came to the couple of Murray and Mindy Markowitz. I was pretty much brought to tears by their final scene with their son, and any show that can make you care that much for side characters is doing something right. The showrunners here clearly understood what kind of story they were telling with each of these characters, and they leaned into that comic book melodrama to varying degrees of success across the board. However, as with the theme of this review, there was a huge misstep brought about by this comic book crutch that ended up making one of the main characters feel like something out of a Saturday morning cartoon. I'm of course talking about Al Pacino's Meyer/Wolf character twist in the final episode.
Devils. 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 Devils.
Come the fuck on, you guys. You were so close to nailing your characters and plot, but then you sailed it right up shit creek with this hilarious twist that anyone with a brain would have saw coming since episode 5, but were hoping they wouldn't dare go through with. I understand why they did it. They wanted Jonah to have to kill Meyer at the end and complete his taking action character arc by killing his mentor. Not to mention it's a slam dunk of a comic book twist. But you could have had Jonah need to kill Meyer in a variety of other ways that actually make sense for his moral struggle. I, for one, would have much preferred if the wolf was actually Meyer, but a Meyer who was broken and corrupted by the wolf. So that when Jonah does finally kill him, he's not doing it out of revenge, but as a necessary step down the morally wrong path first, heading into season 2. I mean, they're kind of doing that anyways, just in a stupid way because he killed the wolf. And then throughout season 2, he could have struggled with having to kill the man who himself was broken by Nazis and not deserving of death. This character is just a twist for the sake of having a twist. Completely convoluted and unnecessary. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who is confused and disappointed by it. So really, what's there left to say? I loved how much I hated this guy. The Adolf reveal gave me the biggest shit-eating grin of the season. These characters existed, he was entertaining if a little pointless, and Jonah finally got to eat Bubby's chicken soup. I wish the direction, cinematography, and action choreography was better. It's all just passable. The flashbacks to the concentration camps were really the highlights as far as the visuals go. And everything else during the present storyline was plain and mostly forgettable. You'd think Amazon and these showrunners would have invested a little more money and energy into those things if you're gonna get Al fucking Pacino to star. But what do I know? This show could have been something really special with just a few minor tweaks and a director or two that added some much needed impact. But instead, Hunters is just a slightly above average melodrama involving hyper-realized Nazis and the super Jews who hunt them. Yeesh. Sounds kind of like a giant missed opportunity when I put it like that, doesn't it? 6 bowls of Gammy's chicken soup out of 10.